Softstar's Chinese fantasy RPG series, and please forgive the translation, Xuan Yuan Sword and Sword and Fairy, have slowly been making their way west in recent years. While Xuan Yuan Sword 7 and Sword and Fairy Together Forever have seen relatively successful releases in the West, the chances are that you haven't heard of these two franchises is high. It's a shame, as both of them are, aside from some technical issues, excellent RPGs, enough so that they ignited my interest in the rest of the games in the franchise. Luckily, East Asia Soft has seen fit to bring a lightly remastered Mists Beyond the Mountain, originally released in 1999, to the West as well. Now, Mists Beyond the Mountain is the third game in the series, but much like Final Fantasy, each game stands alone with its story, with some characters and concepts reappearing throughout the franchise. You don't have to have played any of the previous games to jump into this one, and if you started with the 7th game as I did, it's not going to impact your enjoyment. Softstar's IP are heavily steeped in Chinese mythology, and Mists Beyond the Mountain is no exception. This time though, it's an East meets West affair, as Chinese and Western mythology are paired together to produce an incredibly distinct story. Set during the European Dark Ages, Mists Beyond the Mountain's story ranges across the Middle East and the West before heading back to China. You start your journey as the Frankish knight Septim, who's on a journey to find the invincible arts of war. However, the European side of the world is in upheaval, as the Church is on a religious battle to root out heretics wherever they may find them. What starts as a simple journey to find a way to Arabia sets Septim up against the Church and puts him into the sights of Satan himself. With the help of a demoness named Nicole, it's up to Septim to find out just why Satan wants him to lead his armies, and what he can do to change his fate. To say that Mists Beyond the Mountain story is novel is an understatement. The game mashes up Chinese and Western mythology, with concepts like devil-worshipping monks, floating islands, and time travel thrown into one big pot and left to boil over in delightful fashion. There are the odd pairings, surprising plot twists, and a fair amount of real-world history and themes mixed in. So as a bit of a warning to those who are uncomfortable with racism and religious extremism, both play a huge role in the proceedings. The story, as with any good RPG, is reliant on its characters and their interactions, and Mists Beyond the Mountain excels in both departments. The relationship between Septim and Nicole is a constant delight, and the game doesn't slow down with its forward momentum, unless you choose to stick around and level grind. It very rarely feels like there are any wasted moments as it propels the plot forward from one event to the next. In contrast, gameplay falls into the traditional JRPG mold. You gather a party as you venture across the world, speaking to people for side quests, and exploring the isometric 2D environments. There are dungeons to explore, hidden bosses to discover, and no shortage of random encounters. In this sense, and in its battle system, Mists Beyond the Mountain doesn't deviate from tried and trusted mechanics. Battles play out using the active time battle system so common in late 90s JRPGs. You can attack, defend, use items, use special skills, and capture monsters. Leveling up your character unlocks new skills across a variety of types, from damage to support. The amount of XP you need per level is actually quite low, so it isn't difficult to power level in a short amount of time. The problem is this does end up making the game feel overly easy, as both Nicole and Septim, past level 15 or so, become powerhouses. That said, the bosses can still present a difficulty spike, but if you're only looking to grind for a while, you can let each fight play out automatically while you sip on some tea. The aforementioned captured monsters can be used as accessories, and even fused together to create more powerful items or monsters. These monsters can then be summoned in battle, but sadly, the game doesn't explain this element, along with several other mechanics, quite as well as it ought to. Visually, Mists Beyond the Mountain is also still rather pretty, and its 2D pixel art holds up well. The most outstanding visual elements come from the world map and battle sprites, as the developers have designed them to look like brush paintings. The game also comes with a really good JRPG soundtrack, with catchy music and battle themes. Unfortunately, Mists Beyond the Mountain's biggest flaw, at least based on the English version, is the quality of the translation. At times it feels like it needed a couple more passes and edits to get its points across properly. There's unintentional hilarity, and the dialogue at times reminded me of the dub work from old Hong Kong martial art flicks and badly translated anime. It can be difficult to tell whether or not the dialogue is intentional, and it can impact the more emotional moments. That said, it's not game-breaking, and all the stories and characters are still fantastic, even when they come across a little wonky. Honestly, it's kind of charming in its own way. Ultimately, Mists Beyond the Mountain is a great dive into classic Chinese RPGs, with a distinct flavour of their own they bring to the genre. While the translation needed some more work, The solid and fun exploration and battle mechanics, great characters and interesting story all put this into the must-play category for classic JRPG fans. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel as it helps us grow.